I'm Jenny with Gogh's Art Crate, coming to you with a kids video for the first time in quite a while. I apologize, I haven't been able to find the time to get more kids videos up in place, but I did, and we're going to do a second one after this too. So this particular instruction, I'm going to be teaching the bat, which I think is really fun and cute and cartoony. And then after this video is done, I'm going to film a second video that goes along with this painting, and it's the cat. They both use the exact same color palette, so if you want to do both, you can. Absolutely. We sell the kit on our website, goghbox.com. That's G-O-G-H box.com, and it'll come with all the colors you need. So let's have a look at our supplies here. So here are the colors. I feel like this is a good spooky season palette. We've got purple, green, orange, black, and white. If you're into Halloween or that sort of thing, this is like the perfect color palette for that. So let's look at our other supplies. I've got my 11 by 14 canvas. This time we're turning it so that it's in what's called landscape mode, so it's wider than it is tall. I've got a 10 brush pack here, and those are available on our website. I'll talk about those in a minute. I've got a paper towel for drying my brushes after I wash them in my old mug. So this is my old Van Gogh mug that got run through the dishwasher, so part of the portrait of Van Gogh is crumbling off, so I thought, okay, well, maybe this Van Gogh mug needed to be used as a paint mug. So let's talk about these brushes really quick. These, for the money, for how much they cost, it's actually a pretty good deal. I have a certain preference for how stiff brushes are and how flexible, and I felt like all of these are pretty good. They do tend to ship in with kind of sometimes a little bit wonky bristles. You can actually reshape those with hot water, have a parent help you. What I've done at home is I've taken and I've poured boiling water into a mug. Then I'll dip the brush in and kind of brush it back and forth for a minute or so, pull it out and let it cool just slightly to where you can touch it, and then you can actually reshape these. And the hot water seems to work pretty good in that regard. So we have a lot more brushes than we're actually going to use for this painting. I'll probably only use a few of them, but if you do other artwork, you can certainly use these other ones. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's see, what brush do I want to start for drawing? I feel like for drawing, I like this one. So it is a number 4 bright, so it's not completely squared off at the top. It's kind of angled inward, slightly rounded. I feel like that's going to be a good one for drawing our bat shape. I'm going to go ahead and dip it in my water cup, and then I'll dry it off. I want to dry off this part too. This little metal part is called the ferrule, and that's what holds the bristles to the wooden handle. But a lot of times you'll get a little drop of water that hides out on there, and then as you're working it can gradually start rolling down and splat right in the middle of your canvas, which is fixable, but it's kind of annoying, so I do try to remember to dry that off. So we're going to mix a really pale lavender, so I'm going to scrape off a little white. I'll just plop it down in between the purple and the white and mix that together. So for my paint palette, I have a wax paper pad that's designed for paint mixing. You can use a paper plate, you can use a sheet of aluminum foil, or you can use a sheet of wax paper. Maybe tape it on your painting surface so it stays nice and flat and isn't moving all over. There are lots of different things you can use. At home I didn't have a palette yesterday, so I used a plastic lid from a takeout container. Worked perfect. Sometimes I'll save those for that very reason. Okay, so I'm making a really light lavender. I know I've made a pool a lot bigger than probably is needed, but I tend to do that. This is going to be perfect for sketching the bat out. Oh, there goes my beverage. This is going to be perfect for sketching the bat out. I'm going to draw the shape, and then I'll draw the pumpkin shape, and then we'll fill in the background all around these shapes. So let's go ahead and get started here. We want to leave enough room on the top. I draw the bat body first, and then the ears, and then the wings. So we want to leave enough room height-wise. So let's have a look at the shape of the body. So this shape is basically, if I were to turn this upside down, it's like a perfectly round teardrop shape. So we were drawing an upside down teardrop shape. And let's talk about where we're going to place it. I would guess this is about 3 inches from the top of the canvas down to the top of the head. And this is only about 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches. So keeping those points in mind, let's make some dots and we're going to connect the dots. Okay, so I'm going to find the middle of the canvas right here. I'm going to drop down about 3 inches. That's about that far. Make a little mark. So then you know that's where the top of the head is going to be. And then I'm going to just go straight down to the bottom of the canvas. Let's come up about 1.5 inches. So about that big of a gap. Make a dot. And now I'm going to, you can draw from the bottom and work your way up, or you can go from the top and work your way down, however you prefer. We're not completely stuck with this sketch, so if you don't like it the first time, you can redraw it. I do that all the time. But make it nice and wide. They look real cute when they have a big wide body. There we go. So it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be at all. It can be a little wobbly and wonky. That's okay. For the ears, I made really tall, kind of rounded point ears, and they're very easy to draw. So I'm going to start right over here. It's almost like in between a rabbit and a cat. And I just try to match it up over here. It's always hard to get them the exact same size, so just eyeball it. There we go. I think I'll draw the eyes next and then go for the wings. So let's have a look at the eyes. They're oval shaped, but they're tilted inward. So they're instead of like, this is almost like an egg shape. Normally it would be upright, but I've tilted it on both. And you can draw them on. I had to reshape mine throughout painting this in, so you can do that too if needed. The eyes are very large, which is not like normal bats. So there we go. Nice big round eye. Right now it actually kind of reminds me of Piglet from Winnie the Pooh, except for these huge eyes. And the teardrop body. It's just those ears. There we go. We're not going to worry about the other facial features like the nose and the little fangs. Those get added later. And we're going to draw the wings, and then we'll start filling it and draw the pumpkin and fill in the background. So the wings are going to be the part that's maybe a little more complicated. I can see my bat's a little bit off center. It's a little bit pushed to this way, but that's okay. I'm just going to go with it. So just under the ear here, let's scoop down and up. You're getting close to the side of the canvas. You can even come up like you're drawing a wave. Like it's an ocean wave from the side. It looks really funny right now. Now I'll do this one too. There. It's like he's got little muscle man arms. And now this, I'm going to round, from this point I'm going to round off the side of the canvas. And same here. Round off the side. So then we've got the top of those bat wings. If you're a Batman fan, it looks a lot like the bat symbol actually. When it's like, if you were to imagine the body's not there, it's shaped a lot like the Batman symbol. Now I'm going to talk about the bottom of the wings. The first time I painted this, I didn't give it enough scallops, so these little connecting parts looked very strange, and so I went back and I redid it and I put lots of scallops. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 on each side. If you can't fit 4, do 3. But more than 2. I had 2 the first time. It just didn't look quite right. So I'm going to start way down here, and I'm just going to do a little scoop. You can do that over here, match it up. Pretty easy to do. And then another scoop. Looks like I'm going to fit maybe 3.5. So just keep scooping until you make it to the side. It's vaguely bat-like, so I think that's going to be okay. If you have to redraw it, just redraw it right now, and you can pause the video if you need to, and draw it how you want it to be. We fill everything in, so all of these lines I just drew are going to get covered up with paint. So I could, if I wanted to scoot my bat over a little bit, I could redraw the whole thing. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put you guys through that and make you wait. We're just going to go with our slightly off-centered bat here. That's just how it works when you're live painting, I guess. So I'm going to draw the pumpkin. It's just a little peekaboo view of the top of the pumpkin. You can do a round shape or more of an oval. You know, pumpkins come in all different shapes and sizes. What I did is I just did 2 little bumps. So then I have a perfect little spot for the stem. And I'm going to come up from the bottom left corner. I'll jump up maybe 1.5 inches or so. And it's almost like you're drawing, like if you've ever drawn birds, you know, you just do this shape. You know, little bird in the corner there that's going to be a pumpkin. Sorry to confuse you that way. Let's wash our brush off. We're going to pick up our largest brush now, so this one gets to take a little rest. Make sure you get all the paint off as much as you can. And when I wash my brushes, I don't push them on the bottom of the cup super hard, because then you can really flare out the bristles and it will be a problem in the long run. So we want to treat these brushes pretty good so we can use them lots of times. Go ahead and take, this is my, oh gosh, it doesn't have a number. It's just your largest brush. It's really close to about 1/2 inch wide. Dip it in the water cup. Just brush it real lightly back and forth. Wake up those brush bristles. Now I'm going to dry it off. Remember to roll it across your paper towel or your paint rag and just get all the water drops off of the metal ferrule. And let's go ahead and paint the background. So you can do I did sort of a mix of the purple and white, probably a little bit more purple than the outline is. I kept this outline pretty light just in case I had to redraw it. Maybe I'll put a little more purple in there. I definitely have it so it's a night sky. You can see I put stars in there. And my brush strokes are just lots of little dabs in different directions. Just go along all of these shapes you drew. This part you can work pretty quickly because we're not doing a perfectly smoothed out background. It's a little impressionist, I guess. If you accidentally overlap into your owl body or ears or anything, that is totally fine. It happens all the time to me. There's lots of opportunities to fix that when we start painting the bat in. So don't even let that stress you out at all. See, I overlapped. Oh, wow, what am I going to do? Well, luckily that becomes black later. So it's easy to cover. Normally I use a little bit larger brush for my background stuff, but this one seems to be getting the job done. And it's easier to manipulate around these little curves and things, so maybe this was a good idea. When I first got these brush packs in, I thought, oh no, I'm not going to be able to use these. The big brush isn't big enough. But I am happy to say it's working really good. So my goal here is to cover all the white canvas in the background. You might occasionally have little speckles of white canvas that remain. It's really easy to go back and do a second coat. Do exactly what we're doing now after everything's dry. Maybe after we get the back completely done. Before you do stars. So yeah, that's really easy to do. I did that some on here. I can see it down in here. I had maybe a little too transparent. I had too transparent of a coat of paint going on there. So I just put some more paint in some areas, but not all. If you need to remix color, like if you ran out after you did the top of this, just try really hard to match the color. What helps, what I'll do sometimes, I'll mix the color and then I'll hold my brush up next to the background and make sure it's the same. I have a lot of bat decorations up in my house right now because my daughter loves Halloween and she found a whole bunch of bat decorations that she really liked. They're little plastic bats that you stick on the wall and you fold them so it looks like their wings come outward. And gosh, there's so many of them. I don't even know. I lost count. But I had to stick them all up on the wall one by one. And that took a while. And one thing that happened that was kind of funny is we didn't realize that our puppy had gotten a hold of the sticker sheet. The sticker sheet has the little tiny dot stickers that you use to stick the bats to the wall. So she took it into the other room, of course, because she doesn't want us to see what she's doing. And she completely gnawed it to pieces, so I couldn't hang up all the bats. And she had stickers in her fur and stickers all over the wood floor, so that was a fun cleanup. But you know, that's what puppies do. They're good at grabbing things and noticing whenever you drop something. It's like it's coded into their DNA. Okay, there we go. I've got the background pretty well filled in, I should say. Don't worry if when it dries it seems like maybe it's a little too transparent. Like I said, we can go back and touch up anything in the background. It's easy to do, super easy. Okay, what next? Let's wash our brush. I think I'm going to go ahead and fill in the wings. So I'm going to show you that original real quick. Just washing my brush off, dry it off, set it aside. We are going to use the same brush probably in just a minute here. But let's look at the wings. So I really wanted to be able to not have the body and wings blend into one. And so what I did is I made a dark charcoal color for the inside of the wings. And then the body, it's probably harder to see in the light. I'll lift it up. The body's solid black. So then you definitely see, oh yeah, you can see the body there. It's not just blending into one big blob. So I made a gray by mixing purple and black. It makes a really good purple-based gray. You can also do white and black. So if you're running low on purple and you don't want to use it all, just mix white and black and just make a pretty dark gray. But I'll go ahead and scrape off some purple, plop it down over here, mix some black in it. Try it a little black at a time because it really does overpower that purple right away. So you want it to look different from the black. So I can see if I tilt it in the right light, I definitely have gray here and solid black here. So we want them to be different so that the wings are separated from the body in color. There we go. I mix gigantic pools of paint. It's just a habit that I have gotten into over the years. You don't have to make your pools of paint this big. I just tend to do it. So I'm going to start filling in the wings. Now if you need to switch to a smaller brush to get around these outside edges, these little scallops, you can definitely do that. What I try to do is I get the bulk of the wing filled in, so the central area where you don't have to be careful. You have to be careful when you get around the edges, but right here in the central area you do not have to be careful. The reason I do it this way is I'm getting a lot of paint on quickly, but I'm also allowing the background to dry so that when I get close to it, I'm not smearing this light purple into this color too much. A little bit is okay. Now I have no choice, but you know what I'll do? I'll switch over to here. I'm gonna go around the body. Use the thin edge of your brush. That's the cool thing about flat brushes like this. You can have two different sides to use. You can use the nice big wide side to get a lot of paint on at once, or you can turn it and use that chisel thin edge if you need to outline something. They're just a little harder to outline around curves like this. I'm going to have us use a smaller brush for that. So you can see I'm just coming close to the edge, but just mainly filling in the bulk of the middle here. And then what I do is, so you can see a lot of haphazard brush strokes, all different directions. I'll usually come through while the paint's wet and just kind of smooth that out. It's kind of oddly satisfying, actually. And once we start filling in around the edges, it'll probably get a little more haphazard again. That's all right. Gonna wash this brush and set it aside. What brush do I want to use next? Well, looking at my selection, I think I'm gonna go for my number 4 Bright. That was the one we used to sketch the owl out. Owl. I was painting an owl earlier today. The bat out. So it's the one that's slightly rounded. Flat brush, but slightly rounded. I'm going to dip it in the paint here. And you know what? I accidentally left this brush in the water. I try to not get into the habit of doing that too much. Just wash it off. Dry it off. Okay. Now I'm just going to carefully re-outline my bat wings. Go right out to the light purple background. If a little smears in, that's okay. Just keep working on it and you can touch it up later when everything is dry. And I'm going to go along here, turning my brush using that thin edge. So a little brush like this is pretty easy to manipulate around these curves. And I'll just carefully fill this part, little last remaining white part of the canvas in. One wing done. Yay. And you guys just move along when you feel ready. And remember, you can pause the video, which is really nice. Before COVID, I did a lot of in-person classes. And it's a lot harder to pause the instructor in a live class. So doing the video classes is really nice in that regard. So you can see I outline everything first before I fill it in. I feel like that works a bit better. I like doing a lot of the kids' paintings. They're super fun, and I love doing these fun sort of cartoon-like characters. I just need more time. I need to clone myself. My other part of my work takes so much time. Gets kind of pushed aside. But as the holidays are coming up, I definitely want to get some more kid paintings done. All right. So I will likely go back and do a second coat of paint to make the wings a lot more opaque. So right now they're transparent. You can see, it's a thin coat. You can, look at that sun coming in there. It's a thin coat of paint, and so you can see lots of streaks from the brushes. But if you look at the original, it's a pretty solid coat of paint. You don't see that. So that's because I was able to give that one a second coat. Okay, let's go ahead and start filling in the body part. So it's solid black. We don't have to mix any colors. And washing that brush off. This is my number 4 Bright. That's the slightly rounded flat brush. Where is this coming from? We're trying to figure it out right now. Okay, let's take this brush and dip it in the black paint, just solid black. There we go. I think Paul seems to have found where the sunspot is coming from. Yep, that worked. Okay, so now I'm going to trace the ears. Use the thin edge of your brush. Just turn that brush and utilize that side. I'm going to trace this one. Now this is the time that if you have to reshape the ears, or maybe one's too small and one's a little bigger, you can reshape them very easily. And now I'm going to trace across the top of the head here, go right through the bottom of the ears. And down along where the wings and the body meet. All the way down to the bottom. I decided to leave the legs off. If you want to paint legs, you absolutely can. Just Google it, bat legs. And you can, or just Google bat, and Wikipedia will show you pictures of bats or line drawings of bats. So what I want to do now is I'm going to trace the eyes. I want to try and get rid of all the purple outlines. I'm just going inside, just inside my purple outline, so then I don't have purple peeking through into the white. It's not a big deal, it makes it a lot easier to cover up. If you notice, the eyes are the exact same shape of the body. It's kind of a teardroppy shape. I think I made this one into more of a point on this particular painting. You can round that out if you don't like that, or keep it to a point. They look like ghost eyes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a smaller outline of the ear here, because I want to draw the inner ear. I'm leaving it white for now. We're going to paint it in with gray later, or any other color you want to use. But you'll end up with a little gap to fill in with black. So we're going to fill in this part and leave this inner part white. If you accidentally overlap, the gray color we put on will cover it. That's not a big deal. I leave it white just so we get a nice pure gray. Sometimes when you're painting a light color over black, it will still sort of show through and be kind of dark. So like that's why I'm leaving the eyes white rather than painting white over the black later. I thought, let's just start with a nice and pure white. Then our green eyeballs that we paint in there later will be very bright green. If we paint them over black, they're going to be less bright. Okay, looking good so far. I'm going to proceed now to paint in the rest of the body. You can use a larger brush to get down in here if you want, but I'm having pretty good luck with this number 4 bright. So our black paint that we use is super opaque. I just love that about it, that you can get away with just one coat of paint with the black. But when you start mixing it with other colors, like we did here, it's not as opaque. Now later on, after everything's dry, you can, if your eyes ended up being slightly out of shape, like maybe they're lumpy and you want to reshape them with white, we can do that. You might have to do more than one coat because we'll be painting white over some of the black. But this black has to be completely dry before you do that. Otherwise, your owl's going to end up with gray smears in his eyes. You know, it's your painting. If you want gray smears in the eyes, you can do that. But I'm going to guide you through how to do it the way that I have it here. So I accidentally went into the background just a little bit here, I just noticed. It's probably just such a small amount I can maybe make this a little bigger down here just to counter that. Or cover it. Just ends up with a little bulkier body down there. That's okay. The other thing I could have done is I could have waited for it to dry and come in with more of this lavender color and touched it up. Okay, here we go. Just gonna go through and see if there's any white speckles that are needing a little more paint on them. Sometimes I will tilt my canvas around. If you're working on an easel where your canvas is upright like this, it's a little easier to see. But I actually, for this size canvas, I like working with it flat on a desk because after a while using an easel, your arm gets really fatigued. And sometimes that can affect your painting a little bit. You have to take some breaks. There we go. My little off-center bat. That's okay. I'm just gonna go with it. All right, wash the brush. Let's work on our pumpkin for a little bit while this dries. So I'm gonna wash and dry the brush, and I am gonna continue to use this one. It's the star of the show today, I guess. Let's go ahead and for the pumpkin, I actually like to outline it first and then while it's still wet, fill it in with the orange because then it does this cool thing where it sort of smears together slightly and can make it look like your pumpkin is a little more shaded. So let's take this brush and we're gonna mix black and orange together. You're going to get a dark brown. Let me show you the original. This is the color we're aiming for. It's just orange and black makes a dark brown. Let's just scrape off a little black, plop it on next to the orange, scrape off a bit of orange. Let's mix them together. The black is going to overpower, so more orange than black is going to be your mix here. But it does make brown. We don't use a lot of orange in this painting, so feel free to use what you need. That should work. Okay, so I'm going to outline the pumpkin first. And then what I'm going to do, let's have a look at the lines that divide it. So let me grab a sheet of blank paper. So we learn how to draw pumpkins as we get older. I remember as a kid, I would take my circle shape and I would just draw lines. Well, that doesn't look quite right. It can look like a pumpkin, it's like cute, but I'll show you how you can make it look more curved. So here's my round shape. And instead of going straight down right through the middle, I start at the middle on the top and I slightly curve, slightly mimicking that. And then I'm going to go the other side and do the same thing. And then I'm just going to draw as many lines until I get to the edges. And then you can see, you might even be able to fit more in here. One more. Then you can see it looks a lot more like a pumpkin and has a little more dimension. Kind of. That middle part I don't really like. All right. Let's do it on here. Luckily we don't have very much to show. So I'm going to start right in the middle. I'm going to angle out. And then I'm going to angle out over here, and then I've got room to put one here, and then I've got room to put one here, so it's almost like we're drawing a little spider. And then while you've got this color, and this, if this is dry, you can draw a little stem. You can actually just start from the middle and sort of curve. And then it's always going to be wider where it grows out of the pumpkin, and then get thinner up at the top. And then the stem just sort of grows into these lines that we painted on. Looks like the bat is just about to touch it with its wing. So now I'm going to wash the brush, and while this is still wet, I'm going to fill it in between with orange. Now, if this does dry, it's not a big deal. It doesn't have to be wet. I just liked, when I was putting the bat together, when I designed it, I liked how the colors kind of streaked together at the edges. Like that. So it creates a little bit of a shaded look rather than harsh outlines. The cool thing too, if this orange ends up covering your dividing lines you just drew on here, we can go back and paint those on later. Just kind of re-outline it. And you'll still end up with some of this smeared paint that creates that shading. Fun. So we just have a little easy pumpkin. I think the cat has a more pumpkin showing. See? All right. I think we're ready now to put a second coat on the wings. But if you feel like you need any spots covered in the background with a second coat, you could do that now too. So either way, I'll go ahead and go with the background. I'm going to use my largest brush again. And I'll make some of that lavender color. Like I said, this is totally optional. And I'm not even going to cover every part of this. Just any of the spots that look like they're maybe a bit too thin and you can see the canvas through it. So just be careful around the ears because they're probably still going to be wet. So maybe come close to the ears but not quite touch them. But you can see the difference if you compare these spots over to here. So it's just your individual preference. If you like the look of this and you like all those all those brush strokes showing, then I would just leave it. If you like a smoother background, then you can do what I'm doing here. It doesn't even have to be a ton of paint on your brush. I'm still moving my brush around in different directions, giving it kind of a choppy feel. Almost done. This is just a quick process. You don't need to work super hard here, and you don't, like I said, you don't need to paint everything with the second coat. Just hit some of those thinner areas. Be careful around your pumpkin since it's gonna still be wet. Acrylic paint takes around 10 minutes to dry depending on the thickness. If you do really thick paint, it takes a long time. But if you do a pretty thin coat, it can dry within about 10 minutes. You can facilitate that with a hair dryer. Just have a parent or guardian help you. And just 30 seconds with the hair dryer works really good. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm ready to give the wings a second coat of paint. So let's wash the brush. I'm going to use this same brush. That was my largest flat brush. Get all that purple off of there and then dry it off. So to get the metal ferrule dry, you can actually just fold your paper towel over it and pull the brush through. It works really good. All right, so I need to mix purple and black again, and I am really running out of purple, so I think this will be enough though. Maybe. We'll see. I'll scrape up what I've got here. Yeah, that's pretty close to the same color. It doesn't have to be exact because we're going over. So this is the time if you felt like you needed to lighten the color a little bit or even darken it, you can paint over it with a slightly different shade and it'll be totally fine. Just be careful as you get close to the body here. And I'll just fill in the bulk area and then switch to a smaller brush to get around those scallops again, like we did last time. Before I switch to a small brush, I'll just go over to this side. Hey, Paul, I think I'm going to have you grab me a little container of purple. There's one right by the printer here. Thank you. So I'm going to give myself a little more purple. I thought I could make it, but not quite. Look at that. It's like a giant mixing pool. I noticed teaching in the studio that a lot of students do this as well. And then other people keep their palette really nice and neat with tiny little spots of color. So I guess everybody has their own way of doing it. Okay, now I'm getting down to where I'm going to need to switch to the smaller brush. But these look so much better already. So let's wash that big brush off. Dry it off. And I'm going to use my number 4 brush again. Let's see, yeah, I guess it's the only number 4 out of this whole batch. The way brushes are numbered is sometimes kind of strange. I haven't quite figured it out. Sometimes one brush manufacturer's number 4 is way bigger than another. And I haven't quite figured out what the deal is there. So what I usually do when I'm buying brushes, I'll look and see if the manufacturer has the size listed of the actual brush head. So it'll say like 6 millimeters wide. And then I can look on a ruler and sort of estimate, okay, yeah, that's about the right size I need. So I'm just getting into these little areas. And now I will finish this wing up. So I live kind of out in the country in Oregon. It's not a huge town, and it's like you just drive down the road a little bit and you're out in the country. But we do get a lot of bats that fly around at night, and I can always tell when it's a bat because they fly so erratically. It's like they're completely undecided of what direction they're going to go in. So it's kind of funny. But I can always tell when it's a bat flying and not a bird. Usually birds don't fly at night too much. Very unusual. But bats, they're right out there flying erratically, trying to figure out. Maybe it's because they use echolocation. They use sound to try to figure out which direction they need to go. So they're like, I'll go this way. Oh, wait, no, it's over here. Oh, wait, it's up. That's what it seems like. They're undecided of what direction they're going to go in. Okay, so good. Our bat has a nice solid coat of all the body and the wings, nice and dark and opaque, just like we want him to be. So now we're still letting the background dry after a second coat. I do have some spots around the ears. I can tell they're still a little bit shiny. So if I tilt it, look at how shiny the wings are. But you can see on the body there's some shiny spots too. So I'm going to wait to do anything there. But I am going to go to my pumpkin. It doesn't have to be 100% dry, but this orange dries really fast. If you feel like you need to give a second coat of orange in those little wedge sections, you can do that now. I didn't mention the brush. I'm using the same brush. The star of the show for this painting is number 4 Bright. We will get into some of the smaller brushes. That comes with when we start working on details. Gonna wash the brush. I'll let the pumpkin dry a bit, and then I will come in with more brown just to... Here, let's have a look at the two different pumpkins. So this one, you can see these outlines are a little bit more they're a higher contrast. So I went through with another coat of that brown, which will do. Let's paint the inside of the bat's ears. Now it's a gray made with just black and white. Unless you want to make a different color, you can do any color you want. That's the nice thing about painting. You get to choose what you do. So I'm going to use, again, number 4 Bright brush, the one we've been using throughout the painting. Clean it off. Last color we had on it was orange. And I'm going to mix black and white. So a lot of white, just a little black. We want to make kind of a medium / pale gray. Unless you're doing a different color. You could do green. Why not? And firstly, I'm going to use the thin edge of the brush and trace the whole shape. So that rounded triangle shape. And then I can fill it in easier. If you need to use a smaller brush to trace that, absolutely, go for it. I'm just here to guide you. And I'll do the other one now too. They have to have these big ears so they can hear what direction they need to erratically fly in. So outline it first, fill it in. And throughout this painting, feel free to, if you've done a lot of painting and you want to do something that's a little more advanced, like let's say I wanted to shade the inner ear a little, if you feel comfortable doing that, go for it. I'll show you how to do it just in case. If you're still catching up, just catch up and keep working on what you're working on. But I would take a tiny bit of black on a washed brush while this is still wet, and you can work from the body of the owl upward and just kind of shade the inner ear. Now I didn't do that on the original This is just, I'm showing, some of you guys are older and have painted longer and you want to do some extra stuff. That's just one idea. Now I could keep adding more and more, but I don't want to go too crazy because I know I could go on to a 2-hour class and we probably don't want to do that. All right, let's wash the brush. How about we paint some eyeballs in? That seems like it's a good thing to do right now. I'm going to use a smaller brush, but let's have a look at these. I did bright green eyes and I did 2 coats of paint. The first coat wasn't quite opaque enough. And gosh, the eyes look like slightly different sizes, which I think is kind of lends to the whole cartoon aspect of this. So let's pick a small pointy brush. I've got lots to choose from here, but you know, I think I'm going to go with this. This one is number 2 round. I feel like the length of the bristles is right for what we need to do. And it's kind of crispy because when they come in, they brand new, they have a coating on them that keeps the bristles together, or that's what it's intended to do. So I'm going to really lightly press, very light. These little ones fray super easy. So I'm going to really lightly press it across the bottom of the cup back and forth and dry that off. And let's dip it, the tip of the bristles in the green or whatever color you're going to make the eyes. And I just do a smaller version of the overall shape of the eye in the middle. If you mess up here, white will touch it up. So you don't want to do it right away though. You want this green to dry. Otherwise you're going to end up with your whole entire eyeball being like light minty green because the white will smear and mix with this. So try it the first time. If you need to reshape the inner eyeball, this isn't the easiest thing in the world to do, but if you need to reshape it, let it dry, and then come back with the white and just go around the outside edge and reshape it that way. Now the other one. Getting them the exact same size is a big challenge, so I don't even really try too hard because it is sort of a cartoony painting and looks, sometimes some of these look really cute if you've got 2 different eye sizes. We're not going for realistic here. We don't need to. That's what cameras are for. We're creating our own little Batty character. So this green on its own, it actually did paint on nice and opaque. We can give it a second coat later after we do something else if you feel like you need it, but you might not need it. I'm gonna wash the brush off, and while the eyes dry, we're gonna do a couple different things. So I'm gonna re-outline my pumpkin lines. I stuck my finger in there, it's not quite dry. Any of your small brushes you could use. We could use the one we were just using. Why not? So number 2, and I've got, it's cleaned off and I've got a little bit of brown left here. If you need to remix that, it was orange and black. So I will redo my stem, and I've got, with this smaller brush, you can do some other fancier things. Like you could take this and curly cue it under. The smaller brush works great for that sort of thing. I don't have a lot of paint left, so I think I'm going to mix a little bit more. And now I'll just retrace thin lines here. If needed, you may not need to do this. Right. Well, it looks like a pumpkin, so that's good. I'm going to wash the brush off. We don't have a ton more steps to do. We're getting down to where it's just the detail work now. And I'll take dry my brush off. How about, while the eyes are still drying, let's do some stars. They're the easiest thing in the world to do. You want to take one of your tiny round brushes, and what you want is you want the handle to be real small. This one, let's see, what is this? This is 2/0. So it's got a little pointy end on it, which is perfect for stars. I'm going to dip it, the end of the brush, so not the brush part, the handle part. I'm going to dip it in the white, and then I literally use it like a rubber stamp, and I'm just going to stamp little white stars all the way throughout the background. If you're more advanced, you could paint smaller bat shapes in the background. Like maybe there's a flock of bats. I don't know if I guess they do travel that way, yeah. I don't think I'd want to run into a flock of bats, but I do see videos of them flying around that way. Maybe that's just in the movies. I'd have to Google it and see if they're a solitary creature or if they do normally fly in. They don't seem to mind being together in big groups. Like when I've seen them at the zoo, there's a bat exhibit, and they're just like all over the place. Maybe they have no choice. I don't know. All I know is the bat area is kind of stinky. There's a lot of fruit that is rotting and a lot of bat poop. And it doesn't smell good. Okay, so there I've got my night sky, lots of stars.
I got some helpful information.
Oh, Paul has some helpful information. What, he must have looked it up.
I did. A group of bats is called a cauldron.
Oh, that's perfect, you guys. A group of bats is called a cauldron. How perfect is that for this time of year? So we learn something every day, and we learned that today. That's awesome. Okay, so our stars are done. If you're still working on the stars, just continue to do it. The next thing we're going to do is pretty easy. You can pause the video again if you need to. But I'm going to actually have us paint the nose on. You could leave it. You could leave your bat without the nose and mouth, and it's really cute that way. I see a lot of cartoons drawn that way. If you want to go with what I'm going to do and draw the, the nose and mouth, I'll show you how to do it. So I know it kind of looks like the nose is gray, but it's actually lavender. And it is shaped like a jelly bean. So it's got rounded on the top and then it sort of indents, or a kidney bean, sort of indents in the bottom. Or you could say it's shaped like an upside down heart, but it doesn't have the point. It's rounded. So whatever helps you draw that shape in your mind, whatever helps you visualize that. Let's see. Let's go with our number 2 round, or if you feel like you need a smaller brush, this 2/0 is good. And I want to mix... Wait, this doesn't seem like this is the right brush. I'm having some confusion. There are two. Okay. Oh, I picked up the looks like a flat brush. So there are two number 2s. There's number 2 flat. There's number 2 round. I'm going to pick up the round one and going to mix purple and white. Yeah, this is, in case you haven't been able to tell, this is the first time I've used this brush set. So far, I'm pretty happy with it. I think for what we are doing, it works perfect, the whole set. I have a lot of paint on my brush from mixing, and when I'm drawing something so small, I don't want a lot of paint on my brush. So I find that the best way to fix that is to set your brush down and pull and twist it on your palette or your paper towel, because then you knock off a lot of excess paint. And then you can re-dip the very tip of the bristles into the color. And I'll show you how to draw that nose. So it's right up here, close. I mean, it's between the eyes, so he has kind of like a squished face, which works perfect for a bat. I'll just do like a little rainbow shape first. Like that. That part's easy. The part that's a little more complicated is coming down and doing like the heart. So it's like an upside down heart. And you can just paint right through the middle. So then you've got 2 nostrils. And you can reshape those nostrils by bringing that lavender in a little bit. It's kind of like a little pig nose. If you messed up the nostrils and you want to just paint the nose solid purple, just let it dry and then you can use black and paint a couple slits in black on the nose later. I'm going to wash the brush now and I'm going to paint the fangs. I didn't actually paint a slit for the mouth. I just painted 2 little white fangs that are kind of centered under the nose. If you want to paint like a little smile, I would use either the same purple we used for the nose or gray, like this color. And you can just draw a little smile with the teeth coming off the bottom of that. Or you can do what I'm going to do. I'm just going to use my same brush, number 2 round. Very small amount of paint on the tip of the bristles, because we're doing delicate work here. And I'm just going to do a tall, skinny, upside down triangle. And I'm going to fill that in. And then just spaced apart from it, another of the same. And then I've got 2 little fangs. I guess you could go across and do like little dots if you want other teeth showing, but I think the fangs are fun. Now while you've got this little brush in white, if you feel like you need to touch up the shape of the eye at all, like maybe you've got some black spilling in here, just use the white to reshape any part of the eye that you might need. Like you can make the whites of the eye a little bigger if you need it. Very little paint though. We've already got the eye done, so we don't need a ton of paint here. I do want to have us move away from the eyes for just a bit. If you feel like you need a second coat of the green, now would be the time to do that. I think mine look pretty solid, so I'm not going to give it a second coat to the green. But if you want to do that right now, just do it real quick. And use one of your smaller brushes, paint some green in there. If it needs to be more opaque and it's too transparent right now. But I feel like this turned out okay. Next, we're going to paint these little ridges, veins. They're I don't really know what they're called. I should have looked this up before the video and then I could give you guys more educational words. But we're going to paint those things. So, brush-wise, I think I want to use... I think I'm going to use this number 4 Bright again. This is the one we've been using throughout the whole painting. It works really good for this because I'll use the thin edge. I like this brush too because it will hold more paint long term. So if I were to use one of the little round brushes, it would run out of paint right about here. And I would have to re-dip it in paint and break up my line. But I feel like these flat or bright brushes tend to hold a bit more paint. So I want to use my gray. It looks like I need to mix a little more. It's the same color as the inner ears. You could use white if you want or any other color. There are no rules here. We can do whatever we want. Okay, so using the thin edge of your brush, just carefully follow along here and then down. So I'm just coming right up to the edge of my bat wings. And they actually do have, which I didn't draw, they have a little claw that comes off of here. They're really interesting creatures. So that's what we want to start off with. And I want you guys all to get caught up there. I'm going to touch up one spot while you're doing that, because I want you to pay attention real good for the next part, because it can get a little confusing. Like where do we connect what line? I'll show you. We'll just do it one step at a time. And no, this is not 100% anatomically correct bat. This is the Gogh box bat, the Gogh bat. It's the made up painting bat, painting world bat. We can have it how we want. Okay, I need a little more paint. So now let's have a look. everything starts from this point. So I go down to that, and it goes down to the base of the pointy part of the scallop. And then when I get here, I connect that to that. So it makes this sort of V shape. I'll show you how to do every single line. So let's start right here. I'm going to draw a curved line that connects to here. So we're just connecting the dots. You guys have done connect the dots before, I'm sure. Connect the points, that's what we'll call it. So this one needs to curve this way. So I'll show you the curve. See how this slightly curves this way and this one curves the opposite direction. That's what we want to do here. Curve it all the way down to there. Now this next one is also going to start here, but it's going to curve all the way to there. So it's a pretty, on mine at least, it's a pretty steep little curve here. And then I could leave it like that. I felt like it needed one more. So I connected, I don't even know if this is accurate, but I connected this to this. So right up to the bottom of the ear to there. You can leave that off if you liked it better before. I was sort of undecided. So yeah, most everything comes out of this point, but then this one just goes back to the bottom of the ear. All right, let's do it again. This side, we're gonna curve this way to meet the bottom of that point. And remember, this one's gonna curve slightly the opposite direction. And then this one here is going to be the one that's like a big, exaggerated curve. So I was showing you earlier, you could leave it like that. But I just felt yesterday when I was painting again, I thought, I feel like it needs something else. So just bring that back up there. It's looking cute. We only have a couple things left to do. So all we have left to do is just fine details that are super easy. So what I want to do first is I'm going to take my number 2 round and a little black. I'll mix in some more black into my brown just to darken it a shade. So it's pretty dark. It's almost black. And we can define the stem just a little bit. All I did was I'll start at the tip of the stem and work my way down. And I just did a few little lines in this. So you know if you've held a pumpkin stem, they have these little ridges. That's all I was trying to mimic here. There, I'll try and tilt this. There we go. If I tilt it right, you can see what I did. Super simple. I'm gonna wash the brush. Dry it off. And now I'm going to outline the eyeballs in black, so that really makes the green really set apart. And then we'll do 2 white highlights in each eye, a little highlight on the nose, and then we'll finish off with the curly cues on the pumpkin, and we'll be done. So let's take in our number 2 round brush. I'm going to make sure it's clean. I'm going to dip it in the water. I'm going to put a little bit of water. See how small that is? Just a tiny amount of water next to my black. And then I'm going to stir a little black into it. So you want it thinned out, but not like water thin. You want it just slightly thinner than the puddle of paint is itself, because this is what works for tracing small areas if you have slightly thinned out paint. And I'm going to just trace the green. There's one. And now the other. So the highlights are what really bring the bat to life, the highlights in the eyes. So wash your brush. Make sure you get all the black off of it. Dried off really good. And this bat has really big round white highlights. So I do one larger one in the upper part of the eyeball and then one smaller one at an angle. So this one's going to go to at an angle towards the right. This is going to go at an angle to the left. So just go along with me and we'll do it together. So dip your brush in white. This is the same number 2 round. Let's draw a little white circle about the diameter of like a pencil eraser. And then I'll do one over here too. Try not to touch the black, otherwise it'll smear. And then just a smaller dot on this side is going to go slightly off to the left. On this side is going to go slightly off to the right. And if you have room and you'd like to do this, you can put the tiniest little white shine on the top of the nose. That is so cute. I'm going to wash the brush. We have one last step before signing, and that will be the little viney curlicues on the pumpkin. I felt like we needed one more spot of green on this painting, and this was the perfect little touch. So, here we go. Curly, curly, curly. Just do like you're painting curly hair. And you can make those curls go different directions. I know you guys have probably seen this on pumpkins before. Usually they're kind of dead dry color. Not bright green, but we can make it bright green. And then, you know, while I've got green on the brush, I'm going to sign my painting. I'll just do my initials down here. You can sign yours however you like. And this painting is finished. So we've got a cauldron of bats here. 2 bats together. They actually turned out pretty identical. And the cat painting, if you want to do that one, it's a little bit easier. This one would be definitely for someone who's painted more maybe, but even if you haven't, I would say just go for it. That's how you learn. You attempt things that maybe feel a little uncomfortable, and pretty soon you'll be a pro. So there we go. We've got our cute bat. I'm going to hold it up. Both my bats. Flying erratically. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you guys had a good time. I hope you love your paintings and continue to paint. The more you practice, the better you'll get, and the more confidence you'll have when picking up the brush. And that's the most important thing, is gaining the confidence to pick up the brush and know what's going to happen when you do what. It's kind of like learning to ride a bike. You know now when you've practiced riding a bike a lot, you can get right on there and you know what's going to happen. You're going to pedal the pedals and your bike's going to go. So that's kind of how it works with the paintbrush too. You get the confidence to where you know what's going to happen if you do this brush stroke with this brush. So hope you guys had fun, and we'll see you next time.